My background is actually in moving image preservation, film preservation. I went to UCLA to get my master's in their moving image preservation program, and then did a little bit of volunteer work for the library in the vaults, the nitrate film vaults in Dayton, which is in Dayton, Ohio, before they were moved to Culpeper, Virginia, where all of our collections are now. And then I was hired by the library to work with this. And it was just so happened that I started working in the library in 2006, and that was the same year that they finally decided that they were going to approach questions related to video games, collecting and preserving video games seriously. So I just happened to, kind of come in at the right time. I was, I had the fortunate, circumstance of being one of the few people in the moving image staff who had actually played a video game. So that was also helpful. Since then I've just worked with, there's sort of a core group of us within the moving image section who are thinking about these issues. It's, it has yet to eclipse, the moving image and audio recording preservation work that goes on in our building, but we're slowly but surely chipping away at, at trying to figure out how video games will fit into what we do. And this will show you a little bit of what we do and give you a little behind-the-scenes look about how things work there. So this is the building where I work. It's in Culpeper, Virginia, so it's actually 60 miles south of DC, whereas all the other library buildings are here in DC, just on the other side of the mall over there. We have our own facility. This facility was basically, this was gifted to the federal government by David Packard, who's heir to the Hewlett-Packard fortune. It's the single biggest gift that a private individual has given to the federal government. And he basically gave it to us because he's a big fan of old movies, and he wanted to have a place, an actual national center that would deal with audiovisual conservation. So they built this one for us, and then UCLA is building basically a mirror version of this building in Santa Clarita, California. So there'll be one on each coast. That's currently in the works, I think, in Santa Clarita. We have in this building 1.2 million items of moving image collection, 3 million items of recorded sound, over 2 million documents related to moving image and recorded sound, and 4,000 video games. So that kind of puts it into perspective in terms of how new this collection is for us. And that's basically what it looks like when they come in. I don't want to mislead you. This is actually, all of our collections come in this way. It's not just video games getting the proverbial shaft. All of our video collections come in these mailers from Copyright. Almost all of what we have so far from the video game collection are items that have come in through the copyright process. The bulk of the collection, or half of the collection, is older games that were actually retained and kept by the main reading room in the Jefferson Building. And they were games, mainly educational games, and games that included some sort of graphic, violent, or sexual content that might raise a red flag and might be an issue for a congressional matter or something like that. So they had to have the games on hand so they would be able to reference them if some constituency had a problem with something. So that's the first 2,000 games that we got, and we actually brought those over from the main reading room and brought them into our custody in the movie image section. At that same time, copyright law was changed slightly so that we actually could ensure that we started to receive actual games. Before that, copyright law only requested a videotape of the game being played, about 10 minutes or so of the game being played, or DVD, and the first 25 and last 25 pages of source code for the game printed out on a piece of paper. On several pieces of paper, I should say. So this is basically, as they come in, we It goes from this, essentially. These are some of the older games that we received, including the InSync Fantasy Phone and CD-ROM game. That's one of my favorites. And let's see, we have some Star Wars games there. These are some of the newer games that we've been receiving. So we mainly receive, I mean, as you would expect, it's basically console games, newer console games that we've been receiving from Copyright in the last few years. And so being archivists, our first inclination is to take all those colorful, pretty games and to put them into cream-colored boxes. But this is as much of an organization issue as it is a storage issue. One of the first concerns of our curators was, you know, like, well, we want these games, but we don't really want them to take up too much valuable, you know, film and video space. So our first decision was to sort of collapse the boxes of the older games that we were getting, which were mainly in cardboard boxes, collapse those down and put them into folders. And so, you know, along with all of the other material that came with those games, as you'll see in the next slide. Oh, this is this is an example of one of the boxes here. So I think we generally fit about 8 games per box, so that, you know, the real estate on the shelf is a little bit less than it would be. And here is an example of one of the games and all of the accompanying material that comes with it. This is Fallout 2. And so here you'll see the box, which is sort of the big center thing there. The game itself, which is here in this jewel case. You have the, you know, the journal that you know, came with the game, where you can kind of keep notes of how you were playing. And then lots of advertisements that came with the game. So these are things that, you know, since we're not really providing any real access to the game as of yet, and we haven't figured out, you know, honestly how we're going to approach that yet, our biggest concern right now is just making sure that all of these, you know, accompanying materials and anything else related to a game that we might get is kept together, you know, so that we have some context to give the game. So if a researcher does come in and say, well, I want to know everything you have for Fallout 2, we're able to give them all of these items and possibly any other things we might receive, strategy guides or something like that for Fallout 2, so they at least have some understanding of the context of the game and what it meant to play it and how to play it, beyond actually having the ability to play it, which we're not able to provide yet. Here's just another example. This is Crusaders of the Dark Savant. Which, so we do have some games, you know, some floppy games, not a lot. Most of the games that we, you know, probably the oldest game we have in our collection currently from Copyright is from 1990, and so it's mainly CD-ROMs. There's a few floppy games that come through. And these are examples. We still do receive DVDs of gameplay. Every once in a while, someone didn't get the memo that they're supposed to send us the actual game. So they'll send us descriptive material and then these DVDs of gameplay. And here's just a screen grab of one of those DVDs. Looks like this is actually a DS game, Clubhouse Games. And this is actually the Japanese version. We received a DVD of the gameplay for the Japanese version of that particular game. These actually are some of the, you know, the more esoteric games in our collection. These are CDIs, which were playable on Philips' proprietary gaming system around the you know, mid-90s. And these are things, I think all of these are actually Europe. They were published in Europe, and these came from just an individual. We actually didn't get these through Copyright, but these are, you know, so these are some of the rarer things we have in our collection now. And then again, these are just examples of some of the games we receive from you know, the actual Japanese version, which is exciting and interesting. And I'm still not entirely sure why those are being sent in for U.S. copyright law, but I'm glad that they are, because in some cases we'll get a game that otherwise is only available in America for download, and those games we actually are not. You know, there's nothing in place yet for us to capture those born digital games that never actually are published and sold in stores. So to get anything like that is a move in the right direction, I think. That's something that we are still struggling with, is how we are going to approach these games that are born digital and never made physical, because, you know, it's something that for copyright especially, I mean, the Copyright Office just hasn't set anything up yet for us to receive born digital submissions. We're going to be starting to receive born digital submissions for moving image material soon through a project with Disney and MTV. We're going to be getting some TV shows from them, Born Digital, but the gaming, we haven't started to talk about that yet. Another detail of that game. And then we do get, other documentation. This is from the game Diner Dash. And again, they sent us in a DVD of gameplay, but they also sent us in a bunch of just printed out screen captures of the game. So this is something else that we, are happy to have. It's something that we can then put in the archive and hope to keep around, in lieu of actually providing access to the game itself, or in addition to, hopefully at some point. And this is an example of some of the source code we receive. I actually purposefully made it look like the scroll at the beginning of Star Wars, since it's a Star Wars game. It's the Force Unleashed 2. So, and again, when we get source code, we're only getting a very small excerpt of the source code. So it really doesn't do us much good beyond, just getting it. We aren't really able to use it for preservation purposes later on down the line, and that's something else that we're talking about and thinking about now, of how we can go about, getting all of the source code, hopefully. This is your typical library cart full of books until you see this detail and see that they're actually all strategy guides for various games. So we do get strategy guides through copyright, and those are all being sent to Culpeper now to our building. These are slightly older, so they were subject to the library's beloved binding and collections care. We've now asked that they no longer bind them this way, because it in some ways destroys they have to strip the spine off the book basically to bind it. So we all the ones that we receive now are just the standard paperback strategy guides. So we're keeping those. I think the idea is that we will hopefully have the strategy guide with the game for which it exists, like shelved together with that, so that we can add that to our sort of contextual grouping. Okay, so this is a screen capture of you can actually go to Copyright's website, and they have a database of everything that's been sent in for copyright. And so I looked up Pac-Man just out of curiosity. And so this was sent in. It looks like it was sent in 1982. You'll see the application title there is Puck-Man, not Pac-Man. And when you see the description, it says a video cassette, 20 minutes VHS video cassette. So, that was, again, since they couldn't send us the entire arcade game of Pac-Man, they just sent us in a video cassette. I have no idea where this video cassette is. That's something else that we're currently working on, is trying to figure out, because we know that there have been things that have come in that could be of value, but since video games weren't really a priority until very recently, and that's typically how the library works. They are kind of slow to certain things like that. We're doing the same thing with television now, where we're only now going back and getting a lot of the very early television programs, because the library just didn't see television as a viable medium worthy of preservation or collecting at the time. So we only just recently got a full run of I Love Lucy, like last year. So we were like, oh, this is so exciting, we finally have I Love Lucy in the library. But that should have been there decades ago. And then I looked up Super Mario Brothers 2, and again, identifying material deposited in lieu of video game, which probably just means that they sent in a piece of paper that says Super Mario Brothers is a game in which a plumber jumped on turtles or whatever, But there's some interesting things to be found in these copyright records. First of all, you'll see that the application title for this game is Mario's Adventure, which obviously changed later on. You can see the date that it was registered, date of publication, which is September 14th, 1985. I know that date has been much debated as far as when exactly Super Mario Brothers came out. And again, this is something else. Whatever material was sent in is, again, something that we don't exactly know where it is. It's probably in a warehouse somewhere, being overseen by top men, and here's when I get to use my Raiders of the Lost Ark, it's typical. So, it's being pushed. I mean, and it's very likely that it is in a warehouse somewhere, most likely in Landover, Maryland. So again, that's going to be something that we will want to pursue, is trying to find out, just how to go back. Even I mean, we're basically 90% sure that there aren't any games there. That's mainly just the videotapes and the scripted material. But it's still something I think that's worth having, just for a historical record. I mean, we have tons of, since I mainly work with moving images, we have tons of copyright descriptions of silent films that no one has seen, for 100 years, and but at least we have a description that it once existed, and this is the plot synopsis, or something that gives researchers, some value, some contextual value. If they can't see that film, at least they can read what it's about or who was in it. It's the same thing with the paper prints. I mean, the paper print collection at the library is basically, if you don't know, it's silent films that, since they didn't want to send in the dangerous, highly flammable nitrate film during the silent era, they would just print an entire film on a sheet of, like a roll of contact paper and send that in. And we have those now, and we're starting to digitize those now so we can put them back onto film. But it's because they sent in those pieces of paper that we're able to, to preserve things now that, that haven't been seen for 100 years and only exist because they were on paper. So, I mean, there's something to be said for that kind of contextual information, or those things that are sent in lieu of the actual item. I'm going to skip that because I think we're going to have questions later, but I'm going to leave this up for a little while in case anyone has questions or donation ideas. Hint, hint. We're currently still, relying on copyright to build our collection, and the library isn't great about getting the word out about these things, except for when I come to events like this. So we're definitely hoping to, talk to people about getting more discrete collections of basically any related material. It doesn't have to be games. It could be, if you have boxes of Nintendo Power sitting at your house or something that you just are looking for a home for, please contact us. And thank you very much.